Southwest Scotland, parts of northwest England as we head into Friday. Then Friday is a messy day, certainly in the west more cloud than Thursday. Some showers for Wales, northwest England and Northern Ireland, maybe southwest England too. But again, for many central and eastern parts, and much of Scotland, most of the day will be dry and bright with some sunshine and again, quite a bit warmer than much of this week. Temperatures into the low 20s. A little cooler on Friday on some of those North Sea coast, a bit more of a breeze picking up here. Things get complicated for Saturday and Sunday. Much of the north staying fine and bright, but in the south, increasing chance of seeing some showers, particularly on Sunday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, and in just a moment, Josh, Jojo and myself will be taking you through tomorrow morning's news headlines. But first, here's Polly with the news.
Thank you. Good evening. The top stories on GB News tonight. Johnny Depp says he feels at peace after winning his multi-million-pound US defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife Amber Heard. After 6 weeks of testimony, the jury unanimously found Miss Heard did defame Mr. Depp in her 2018 article in which she claims she was a victim of domestic abuse. The jury awarded Johnny Depp £12 million in damages. Amber Heard has been awarded £1.6 million in damages after jurors found Mr. Depp defamed her in comments made via his lawyer, who referred to her abuse claims as a hoax. Here's what happened in court earlier.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Has Mr. Depp proven by a greater weight of the evidence that question, the statement was made or published by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was false? Answer, yes. Question, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp? Answer, yes. Question, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes.
And in other news today, Russian forces have reached the centre of Ukraine's strategic eastern city of Severodonetsk as Moscow edges closer to claim control of the eastern Donbass region. In support of Ukraine, the US president announced a new £560 million military package, including advanced long-range rocket systems. The Kremlin accused the United States of adding fuel to the fire and risking direct confrontation with Washington. Here in the UK, the Transport Secretary has told aviation industry leaders a repeat of half-term travel chaos cannot be repeated this summer. More than 150 UK flights at Heathrow and Gatwick were cancelled today, forcing passengers to wait in long queues at airports. Grant Shapps acknowledged staff shortages are causing strain, but said it was no excuse for poor planning by management and the overbooking of flights. Scotland have lost 3-1 to Ukraine in their World Cup playoff semi-final. It means Ukraine have kept alive their dream of reaching the Football World Cup finals in their first game since Russia invaded their country. They'll now face Wales on Sunday in the playoff in Cardiff, and the winner of that will go on to play in the finals in Qatar in November. The final rehearsals for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee show are well underway outside Buckingham Palace all today and this evening. Headlining at the Platinum Party at the Palace Extravaganza are music stars Diana Ross, Queen, Rod Stewart and Duran Duran. Her Majesty will also symbolically lead the lighting of the principal Jubilee beacon at the start of a chain of more than 3,500 flaming tributes being lit across the UK to celebrate her 70-year reign. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Headliners.
Hello, welcome to Headliners. Thank you, Polly. I'm Simon Evans. Joining me tonight, one of Scotland's finest comedians, Jojo Sutherland. Our first show together. Not your first show.
Not my first show, but our first.
Combo.
Yes.
And one of Tesco's finest. It says here. I don't know why they needlessly insult you, Josh.
I mean, I'm a Costco guy. I don't know why. I don't mind being compared to a supermarket.
Of all the things that you scream, it's not like massive overweening ego that needs taking down a notch before we've even begun.
Oh my God, just beating me into the ground here.
Undermining you.
Oh, whatever.
You actually do blend into the background rather terrifying.
This is my GB News outfit. Oh gosh, yeah, because I just wanted my shiny head to really, really shine out.
It's like a green
That's a lot of colour coordination going on. It's beautiful.
I, on the other hand, have got the full range of GB News colours. I've got the white beard, the red tie, the blue jacket. I am the persona.
The living embodiment
Absolutely.
of GB News.
And of Great Britain herself.
I've gone with grey, which is very suited to my Scottish
That's right.
heritage.
Like the colour of the backs of mirrors, the Scottish skies. So, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. We have a slightly selection this evening. I think one or two of the papers are possibly reshaping their front page to accommodate the number one story we'll be taking a look at very shortly. But in the meantime, we go first with the Daily Telegraph and we look to the future with confidence and enthusiasm. That is obviously relating to the Queen there, who is sitting there with her lovely, beautiful pressed, somewhere between a coat and a dress. Only the Queen can get away with outfits like that. And the story there about taking your bags abroad to avoid delays as well. Then we have The Guardian, changes to ethics code, fuel mistrust. Prime Minister is warned. And there is a picture of Amber Heard, who has lost her libel case, is $15 million in the hole. We'll be covering that very shortly as well. The Financial Times, Diamond. Don't know who that is. Sounds a bit like me with the cold. Diamond tells investors hurricane is bearing down on global economy. Diamond is obviously an authority on these things. There's a tactical move there as Ukraine waits on US arms and pretend to work somewhere else. Musk warns Tesla's office-shy staff. We will be taking a look at that. The Daily Mirror has suddenly come out as extraordinarily patriotic. For our Queen, for our Britain, there is a flag-lined mall, or mall, I can never remember which one that is, wife, mother, grandmother and monarch. Daily Express also, perhaps more predictably, in the same mood, a grateful nation salutes you, ma'am. Brave, strong, utterly unshockable, she grew into the perfect queen. The Sun also has that same photograph. Don't you just love her? I'm not sure that quite lands. Queen kicks off the party. Harry and Meghan jet in. And the Daily Star once again throw us a curveball. Unexpected pilot in the baggage area. There's some fella there fiddling around with the luggage when he should be flying the plane, presumably. And I'm a celeb, get me out of here. We will also be covering Mr. Zuma's humiliations. So those are the headlines such as we have. Let's take a look inside the papers. So no question which is the top story on Twitter or in terms of the gossip going around, but the front pages don't seem to have caught up with it yet, with the exception of The Guardian. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Veritas nunquam periit was Johnny Depp's statement, which means I think the truth will not be vanquished. Anyway, trial of the century comes to a conclusion. The verdict is in. This is from the Guardian, Jojo.
Well, I have one from the Telegraph.
Oh, go ahead then.
Yes, so it is finally culminated in a result between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, which has gone on for weeks, and we've all become slightly obsessed with it because we love a little nosy into other people's lives.
Between that and Wagatha Christie.
Oh, I know, isn't it?
Very little time to concentrate on life issues.
Yes, no, anything of actual... Well, and this was an important case, actually, because... You know, Amber Heard had made very serious allegations against Johnny Depp, which have today been found to be fake, or that she'd made them up. So I find it quite interesting that her sort of words afterwards, saying, you know, she was very disappointed and it was beyond words, but also that she felt that the whole issue of domestic violence and women being taken seriously had put the whole, you know, thing of domestic violence back several
Women would
years.
not now feel confident to come
Absolutely.
forward.
But that, I mean, she's just been found guilty of lying.
Yeah.
So, Amber Heard, you have put this situation back because you've done nothing for women. You've made false allegations and then made it really difficult. You've made it difficult. You know?
I'm afraid that is the only conclusion you can come to unless you feel that justice has somehow not been done in court. But there was a point at which her counsel, when he was summing up, said to the jury, if you think they were both violent, then that means the verdict is in her favour. If you think that she was ever the victim of abuse, regardless of how many times she may have abused Depp, you must find for her. And they found for him. The question, I suppose, some people will ask is, did the jury obey that diction, that rationale, or did they just think, well, yes, but actually she's been out of order?
Because I think it is quite obvious that it was a volatile relationship. I mean, there's no getting away from that.
It does seem that way.
But when it comes into, you know, tit for tat, if you like, but if, you know, it goes into a court of law, and I know it was civil proceedings, but I don't know, I thought maybe she could have faced jail for lying. And, you know, I didn't watch it relentlessly, but, you know, it keeps popping up on TikTok. You know, seeing clips of it. And,
it's interesting you mentioned TikTok. I mean, there was one statistic mentioned on a news website which said that there's about 20 million people a night watch this case on one or other news network. There have been 20 billion views on TikTok of various sort of clips and
which in itself you kind of go, is that slightly manipulative because you're just getting little clips out of context, you're getting reaction shots, you know, they're being manipulated, so people can come to their own judgment and go, yeah, she's a lying wench.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, yeah, I mean, so what she's been found is of basis defamation, like it's compensation charges.
And indeed defecation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, because she wrote in a Washington Post article, she said she's described herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. Of course, that is now kind of true. It's just not the way that she wanted it to be.
No, that's right.
I have been following it to a degree, but it's like you'd see a video that was like, oh, well, she's really abusive. And then you'd see him smashing cupboards and you go, wait a minute, that's a little bit dodgy.
Yeah.
And then you'd see her again. So it just seems like a massively toxic relationship. And
they've both done better to keep it out.
Yeah, and at some point, I just kind of tune out because Aquaman was rubbish, so I don't care about that. You know, Pirates of the Caribbean has been terrible for years. So there was just a point where I was like, you know what, Johnny Depp, is he going to make another good movie anyway? Is she really that good an actress? Not really on the stand. Yeah. So actually, I just don't care anymore.
No, I think that's fair enough. What is interesting, though, is that she was, I think, commissioned possibly as an ambassador, as it were, for domestic abuse by the ACLU.
Yeah.
And in that regard, their reputation is more significant than hers.
And they're getting a lot of stuff wrong at the moment, not just this domestic violence.
And I think that's a frustration, particularly for women, and personally, someone who, you know, is a survivor of domestic violence, that it is so frustrating to have women undermine the cause because it has to be highlighted. Domestic violence is a massive cancer in societies around the world. And so for something like this, it just is, why? You know.
Meanwhile, with bleak news for those of us hoping to make a break for it this summer, this is from tomorrow's Telegraph as well, Josh.
150 flights cancelled today. And the more upsetting thing is, for a lot of these people, this is their first holiday in years.
Yeah.
You know, I feel really lucky that we managed to get away in the last holidays for a week. It was just heaven. It was like my kids' first time on the plane. It was so exciting. And to think of all these families trapped at airports and stuff, because the fact is these companies, these airlines didn't get their acts together. And now they're saying, oh, don't take stuff away with you, essentially just take a backpack. Don't put anything that needs to go into the hold because we've not got enough people. How do you not know? Like, the information is there, booked months and months in advance. You know how many people are coming on your plane. You know how many flights are going away. So you know how many people you're going to need. What is their problem?
Well, I suppose, and I don't know if this is it, but it's similar to the rest of the hospitality industry that a lot of staff left the country entirely, didn't they? During the furlough arrangements, it was they realised that they could continue to claim the wages.
Well, I know. I mean, a lot of people, I don't know if it's that they necessarily have gone to other countries. It's just a lot of people were actually left their jobs. They didn't get paid at all, and they got fired.
Yeah.
So that's what it says here is the problem, is that they fired all these people, and now they didn't do enough rehiring.
But the answer usually, if you're short-staffed, the first thing you think is, well, what are we going to have to offer them to lure people back in? There are usually a few people around who will do this work, but you maybe have to improve the conditions in order to get them in.
But that's been part of the problem, isn't it? This sort of fire and rehire, so the conditions are far less, and the money's much below what it was.
I mean, part of the argument, I don't know this is whether they've blamed Brexit, but part of the argument for Brexit was that people who were on the lower end of the earnings scale were complaining that people would come from poorer countries where they had lower expectations and would possibly send their money home and so on, who were undercutting them, right? So you stop Brexit, stop freedom of movement, and then these people's wages will go up, right? The first half of that seems to have happened. And then the second half, they go, we're not going to pay you anymore.
No,
I mean, I think most people would accept cheap flights to Spain or whatever are absurdly cheap now. I mean, there's always running stories saying it's cheaper to fly to Madrid than it is to get from London to Manchester on the railway, right? But just put the price up by 10 quid a ticket and improve the offer that you can make to the baggage handlers, you would probably have this problem solved, right?
Well, I think it's also a logistical problem. Right. They haven't managed to hire the number of people. They haven't been organised enough.
But I sometimes think as well that there's, it's a race to the bottom to take people for granted and pay lesser wages and treat people appallingly. And it does psychologically. If you just pay people more, you get loyalty.
Well,
if you're on a 0-hour contract,
the main appeal of working for a budget airline in the baggage handling thing is the fantastic vehicles you get to drive around on the forecast. Those things with like a sort of an elevator staircase.
You should go work for their HR department.
Definitely do it.
There's a brilliant Twitter account that has something about. The baggage machine is broken today, so we're going to have to trash your baggage by hand.
We're to be doing it with a pitchfork. Thursday's Times now, Jojo to Bojo, and further reflections on Downing Street wine glasses.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by all of this because, the furor goes on about it and the emotional response, obviously, people that weren't able to see their loved ones or, to do certain things because of the restrictions. And so the galling response that, all along that Boris Johnson and aides were having parties. The thing, I get the emotional response, somebody wasn't able to do something because of the restrictions and they broke the rules. But I'm fascinated by why the people that made the rules were breaking the rules. The people that put the fear of God into a nation where people are still terrified.
So what's the news today? Has he been on Mumsnet? Is that correct?
He was on Mumsnet. He's what I love about him, he keeps saying that, it was a miserable party and nobody was having any fun and I didn't have any cake. And, it is that
And it's his wife who organised it, so, he's going to get it in the neck when he gets home. So I've organised this party for you and you're slagging me off.
I had a terrible party during my first birthday in lockdown. My wife and 2 children were out around the back table in the garden, and my wife had set up a Zoom meeting with 2 other families who were all totally locked down in the back garden. And it was just awful. I actually had to go over and just switch it off after 10 minutes. It was so awkward. I feel sorry for him. I mean, not enough is being heard from people, like myself, who were quite grateful to have a good excuse not to have to go and visit loved ones during lockdown. I think there are an awful lot of people...
Like, see you later, Dad.
Yeah.
You know what, Dad? We never got on, mate. So, forget it.
But I think he's constantly just he's going on Mumsnet, he's going to all these different places to kind of go, sorry.
They laid into him. They laid into him. You had normal people there. It's not journalists. It's mums, and they got him.
Still, my mother's proudest moment is when she was there with the Women's Institute, the WI, the day they took on Tony Blair. I don't know if you remember that. And he got up and he was giving a keynote address at the Women's Institute annual conference, and he decided to make it a little bit political, and they literally booed him.
Don't mess with the ladies. But
absolutely, and I think that's...
I just like here he says that one of the answers, he said he would not abandon the project. And I just think, keep my job.
There is no project.
There is no project.
He is famously the least vision-enhanced Prime Minister of modern times. Tomorrow's Daily Mail, Josh. Finally, the left's favourite supervillain is now demanding people actually show up to work, the beast.
I know, it's terrible. So Elon Musk is basically saying to his staff, and we're not talking about his staff who work in the factories, the actual people who do real, proper jobs. He's talking to his white-collar staff, people like us who just get away with it, lucky, say, go into the office for 40 hours a week or get out of here. And, fair enough, he's got people in the factory. But then I like him, and then you read some things that are just, super dodgy as well. Because in China, they're doing the lockdowns and everything. They've got that zero COVID thing. So there are people in his factories who are literally living and sleeping in his factories, doing 12-hour shifts. That don't sound like a nice life.
No.
That does not sound like a healthy way to do it. And I understand they've got to make cars and demand and whatever, but you're just thinking...
Where are these factories?
In China.
You see, the thing about this is, Josh, I've explained this to you many times, it's basic economics. It's impossible for any manufacturer such as Tesla to go into a country like China and offer significantly better working conditions than all the other employers there. It creates...
Look, I understand that, but whatever the reasons are, people living for weeks on end in a factory and sleeping in sleeping bags on the factory floor doesn't sound...
They have nets outside the window to catch suicides. But, that's...
But it's like Amazon.
But that doesn't make it right, is what I'm saying. And I don't think when he starts preaching about this stuff and other parts of his company have things like that, you're going to go, I'm not going to necessarily listen to you for moral guidance.
Either he takes the factory out of China, he could do that.
Yes.
Put the factory back into Detroit. That would be great. I mean, that would be a vote winner, right?
Yeah.
But as long as the factory is in China, they will have...
I don't care, because I can't afford a Tesla anyway. No. So charge another 50 grand for it. What difference does it make for me?
But you're saying that because of the conditions in China, that it would be frowned upon for him to have better working conditions.
Just not possible.
But that's insanity.
I know.
It's insanity. That,
well,
again,
no, it's sanity.
But
that's sanity.
Do you know what I mean? That we just make more and more people... poor and spread this really unpleasant working conditions around the world. And we're becoming more and more accepting. And even a country like the UK...
I was always against globalisation, Jojo. I wish Nixon had never gone to China, let alone...
you're going old school now.
I'm afraid that's it.
There is a
horse's run.
One more go.
That is the end of part one. Coming up, we have misogyny, virality and police complaints. It's not Josh's weekend plans. It's further headlines. Stick with us on GB News. We'll see you very shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners. With me, Simon Evans. We have Jojo Sutherland and Josh Howie. Let's get back into it. Thursday's Sun, Jojo, sentencing news. And once again, it sounds like the judge has failed to read the room.
Exactly. And Zuma has been kicking cats around like a football. I always fascinated by things like, how did that ever come to be known? Did somebody put that
Yes,
on?
his brother filmed it, thought it was really funny. And not only did he do that, he sent it to a woman he was meant to have a date with that night and said, hey, look at this. And she went, you know what, let's call off tonight. That's like a slight red flag. If you get like someone sending you a video of you like kicking a cat or your friend kicking a cat, you're like, you know what, maybe this isn't going to work out.
It's weird though, isn't it, how people have different ideas about what cats really are, I suppose.
What, as opposed to objects or...
whether they are, I mean, some nations treat them as food.
Yeah.
Don't
Oh,
they?
yes,
You know,
absolutely. I mean,
the British are famously sentimental about their animals. We swung too far the other way, arguably, about getting the pets out ahead of some of the interpreters in Afghanistan, you know. But, I mean, there's a sweet spot that most people would agree with, and there's needless abuse is obviously horrific. But I just wonder whether some people just don't have that, I don't know, what would you call it, like the gene that makes you understand that...
Yeah, just that understand, you know...
I mean, I could never do it, and I really do get cross with cats yowling outside the house at night, and foxes and stuff.
And if they jump up on you and you kind of push them away, but not in a violent and aggressive way.
The only time I would ever kick a dog is when it's trying to bite my dog. I do go out, I have a very gentle dog, but he is uncut, you know, so he gives off a bit of... the pheromones, I think.
I have the same problem. This happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Suddenly they're coming for you. Alpha. It is similar, actually, to being a male comic, because I tell you, I don't know if you've ever had this in a comedy club. You do a set, like a 20-minute set in a comedy club. You go to the bar afterwards and have a drink. On that stage, you've been a bit alpha, because you have to command the room, right? But you and I, we're not really alpha people at all. And you stand at the bar and some bloke will come up to you and feel he needs to... let his girlfriend know that actually, you know, All right, mate, I thought you were quite funny. You know what I mean? Anyway, we're getting off the point. He has received, what, like half a day's wages?
Half a day's wages. I mean, again, it is that sort of... You know, it is
People
that sort of
wanted a
moral thing.
custodial sentence.
Yeah, he's got a 12-month community order, 180 hours unpaid work. That's something. But come on, man, this is just not on.
He's lost the kind of sponsorship deals.
He's lost Adidas. He's lost Vitality UK. He's lost Whiskers.
Yeah.
That last one's a joke, by the way.
There was a great picture of him. It was like Puma, you know, the brand, but they changed it to Zuma, obviously, and then he was kicking it, and so it was like a cat. You know, they have the cat, and it was being kicked. I mean, that's
But
done
you wonder
him
as
some
well
damage.
if
more than the fine.
because of what he does and who he is, that he, you know, gets a lesser. I mean, remember the woman that put the cat in the bin?
Yeah, her whole life destroyed.
What happened to her? Was she put in the dock?
She was jailed.
Yeah.
Was she jailed? Not in a bin.
I don't know if she was jailed, but...
No.
But yeah.
But I think her life has been...
the repercussions were...
And she just had a weird rush of blood, didn't she, as well? It was strange...
And you can kind of understand in context, you know, like you say, if a dog attacks, your sort of, you know, jerk reaction is to sort of lash out.
but she literally just... It was
just walking, it was unprovoked, just saw a cat.
Strange.
And the same with this guy, just kicking a cat.
Well, also just thinking it's filming it and thinking it's entertainment.
Thinking it's funny, thinking it improves your brand.
And I think there is something missing in someone's brain that they can't see the...
Would be interesting to know. Maybe there'll be a story later on in the show. Tomorrow's Daily Star, Josh, heartwarming news for those of us on the wrong side of 50.
Yeah, Chinese scientists have created vampire mice. They get younger. Now, this is the bit that actually I feel a little bit nauseous saying. Like, I thought it was just they were just taking the blood from younger mice.
Yeah.
And that sounds to me fine. I've got 5 kids.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll donate, you know, a couple of pints to me. Yeah, give me a pint, get some younger blood. That sounds all good. But this is, they actually attached in the mice together. They're like in Human Centipede. Yeah. I don't know. I get a bit freaky about all that stuff.
That is weird. So they had like an artery and vein.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And basically, the interesting thing was the blood made the older mice younger, but the old blood made the younger mice older. And I think that's the first time this has been proved, and then you can work. So it could have long-term effects, not just in terms of like, oh, older people have to get new blood, but if they can work out what it is about older blood that makes people older or makes younger things older, then they can help you. So good luck, you two. Hopefully they figure it out soon.
This falls into that category, but where did I read about this? It was only a couple of days ago. Somebody saying there are all these amazing things. Oh, it was a chap talking about longevity. Essentially, it was the same thing, talking about longevity and what they call health span. So not like lifespan, but how long do you actually stay healthy and vibrant, you know, and active. And he said so many experiments that work with mice just don't scale up. You know, they talk like calorie limitation. If you severely limit the number of calories in a mouse's diet, down to about a third of what it would eat if there was a buffet available at all times, its lifespan doubles. You know, you go, wow, this is amazing. That's all we needed to do. And it just doesn't scale up at all. Our biology is so much more complicated with
different species.
But also the sheer size, the scale, the physical scale of animals has an enormous impact on whether...
Well, what I was hoping was that I was going to get some little baby mice and they would sort of sew them onto my head.
Exactly.
And that blood would get this all going again around here.
But what is our obsession with living longer? And I mean, would you want to be 130 or
I wouldn't mind only just living to 80, but living well all the way to 80.
Living well, yes.
I want to see the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I want to see Johnny Depp back. That's what I want to get. That's what I'm waiting around for.
What is he? Zuma, Catbin Lady and Johnny Depp all appear in some massive I Will Die a Happy Man. Jojo, far be it for me to revel in the discomfort of our publicly funded competitors. However, the BBC have been wrapped.
Well, they have been wrapped because, as once again, there always seems to be a furore around the trans debate. And this...
Strange that.
I don't know why. But yes, that lesbians were feeling pressured into having sex with trans women, which I always thought was people do try to pressure you into sex in every, whichever way.
It's usually men.
But it's usually men towards women.
And it's men on this occasion.
It is men on this, yes.
But what the BBC did, which was egregious, was they didn't simply report the testimony of these women, they changed the pronouns that we use.
Yeah.
Now, this is a separate thing, and I wanted to talk about that.
But
that's not the complaint. No, that's not the issue at all.
This
This has been basically, the article came out, created a huge furore, lots of trans activists basically swamped the BBC with complaints saying this is disgusting, this never happens. I have seen multiple examples of trans women making videos saying this is what we want. They've done workshops about it, trying to get lesbians to sleep with trans women, and they call them bigots if they don't.
Yeah.
So it's a ridiculous thing. It's real, it happens. This article is one thing that they're basically saying, so all those complaints went in, they looked at it and they said there are two things. Well, actually they said, this article here, The Guardian, is saying they said there were three things. No, they didn't. They came up with two things. The two things are, one is the headline, which actually isn't basically saying it's implying that trans women are trying to pressure women. Well, no, they are. You just have to look online to see that. And the second thing was they quoted a study by a gender-critical activist movement saying that basically the study didn't have enough people. They were like questioning lesbians and saying, have you felt coerced into having sex? And they were basically saying that study wasn't big enough to be able to make a grand scheme of things. So they're not actually saying that this stuff is wrong at all, even though trans activists are going to try and pretend that that's the case. But the separate thing, the thing that you're talking about a few days ago was the BBC interviewed these lesbians, and one of the lesbians said that when she was raped, and she's talking about this being raped by this man with a penis, and the journalist changed it, not the original journalist, but the editors or whatever, changed it to a he to a she. So they're changing...
To they, actually, I think.
Oh, to a they. Well, so the point, they changed the words of a rape victim, and that is disgusting.
It's absolutely appalling. But also the idea that, anyone being coerced into sex by any gender is wrong, but for the results of that to be that you're a bigot if you're not coerced
it's very. I mean, this is real crazy. It's a very fiercely contested front at the moment, isn't it? Because a big part of the reason for that, I think, is that the trans activist lobby, the pro-trans lobby, not only claiming trans rights and so on, and trans women are women. And
basically, when you ask them, by the way, what trans rights do you want? No one's ever can say anything.
But a big part of their campaign and their project is to present trans people as inevitably the victims in any situation. They are inevitably the marginalised, the vulnerable. In a situation such as this, where a trans woman is essentially coercing and using emotional blackmail, it amounts to. If you won't sleep with me, you're as good as telling me I'm not a real woman.
Yeah.
How do you want that on your conscience?
And
it's that kind of element.
That's exactly what it is.
The accusation of being a TERF and all the things that come with that, when people just throw out the word race, it's the stain on people's characters.
Can I just say one final thing? That Stonewall have changed the definition of homosexuality to same gender attracted, not same sex attracted. And lots of lesbians and gay men are going, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not same gender attracted, I like the bodies.
Yeah.
And let's just not pretend that that's not the case.
Fair play. Sticking with The Guardian, Josh, it seems the police are no better at cracking down on misbehaviour in their own ranks than they are at nabbing actual villains.
Yeah, so 1% of complaints made about the police over the last year have now led to proceedings. So
1%.
1%. So 1 in 100 complaints. Now, yes, I imagine
trying to keep a clean sheet, but 1% got through.
There are going to be some false complaints, and there are going to be people who are being ready to go, I'm going to make a complaint about you. I've seen it, you see it happen.
What's your number?
Yeah, exactly. But of that, the police record at the moment, and for some of the individuals, and it's a hard job, and yes, I'm sure the far majority of the police are great at their job and they're doing a job that I can't do. But there are some dodgy coppers out there, and they are getting through the cracks, and we are seeing people being murdered, raped, some very dodgy things, and they are not being court to account. So there's obviously some failing somewhere within the system about bringing these people to light.
Yeah, I think that's always been the case in the police. It's a culture of closing ranks, isn't it?
Closing ranks, same in the military, but also the idea that the police investigate themselves has always sat really badly with me. Do you know what I mean? Like, my mate didn't do that.
What's it called? The Line of Duty. You watched that series?
I haven't.
You never watched that?
No, I've
very convincing.
Yes, no. But again,
I'm interested in one thing and one thing only, and that's bent coppers.
But again, it's always quite frustrating with these figures and numbers, like you say, 92%. You kind of go, but can we, rather than these sort of shocking statistics, what is that made up of?
Yeah.
Because then that gives a very different picture. So it is.
Yes, if like 97% of them, as you say, are vexatious and trivial, then it doesn't look so serious, is it?
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, that's the end of part 2. Coming up after the break, assuming the old bill don't bust us, we will be going bush heavy. Kate Bush, a massive sea bush, and a bush used to conceal drugs. Can't believe they've made me say that. We will see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, and the left fights the right, and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans, Jojo Sutherland and Josh Howie. So let's crack on with Daily Mail. Josh, yet further confirmation that we are through the looking glass in all sorts of interesting ways these days.
Absolutely.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan. Basically, there was a big furore a few months ago. Quite a few artists, Joni Mitchell and others. Neil Young basically said if he's going to be on Spotify, and by the way, Joe Rogan has a $200 million deal, so I don't think he's going anywhere, then we're pulling our music. They pulled their music, they're off, he's still successful, there you go. But what he said about this experience, Joe Rogan, on his podcast, is that it was Fox News, i.e. the right in America, that protected his right for free speech, his right to talk about COVID. What's interesting about him he's a funny comedian, but also as a broadcaster, I guess, which is what he is. It's not that he's right-wing at all. He says himself he's a lefty, but he's willing to talk stuff through. And that means when you are investigating these things, some things you get right, some things you get wrong. And what he does do is he takes new information and changes his mind accordingly. As opposed to everybody else, you're in your tribe, you're in your camp, and you better think that, and that's the way it is. So he's basically found out that, yeah, right now it's flipped, where it used to be the left was liberal and believed in free speech. Now it's the right who is saying, you can talk, and there is more freedom on the right to express these things. Yeah. In America, certainly, when it comes to things like the trans issue, whatever, that it's definitely the right who've taken the cause there. And I'm not saying there aren't bigots on the right, but in my experience now, there are bigots on the left.
Yeah. The weird thing is, Joe Rogan, he's never presented himself as a serious news commentator. He's got this fantastically popular podcast. I listen to it quite often, and not as often as when it was on YouTube, which would be my preferred platform. But 9 out of 10. At least half of it is like one of his favourite returning guests is a guy called Graham Hancock, who believes that there was a great civilization 12,000 years ago that was wiped out, a kind of Atlantis thing. And he's written dozens of books about, maps that exist of the shoreline of Antarctica that couldn't possibly have been no. Do you know what I mean? This kind of stuff. This is not like he's not presenting himself as an alternative to the Washington Post.
No.
He's like a guy who takes a big hit on a bong and goes, "Well,
yeah,
so do you think Jesus was a magic mushroom?"
Yeah.
You know,
and that's it. He's facilitating it more. You know, of course he has his own opinions, but very much debating with people who have very different opinions to him, and like you say, changing their mind.
But I mean, like he's a hippie. He's not like some guy who's kind of trying to
change people's minds.
Well, they kind of get drugs approved. It's like he's wanted marijuana to be legalised forever. He's wanted psychedelics to be used for curing depression. Do you know what I mean? He's coming in from that angle, which is definitely a left-wing angle, right? That is 100% a traditional left-wing trope.
But one of the things he's been most sort of accused of is misinformation about the vaccines, and that's why Neil Young, you know, flounced out.
Yeah. But Neil Young should love the stuff about all of that.
But the thing that I find, again, fascinating is that all this misinformation about vaccines. I know most people in this country, when they first took a vaccine because they were told it would block transmission and they couldn't catch COVID.
Yeah.
Well, who's spreading the misinformation?
Exactly
because we now can prove that people were lied to.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, and I can just say one more thing, is like his point about the right basically not being the suppressive party anymore. And this is why Musk and people are so afraid of him taking over Twitter. It's a point that's been made before. It's not even an original point to me. But what it is that the left are kicking up such a hoo-ha about Musk taking over Twitter, not because they're afraid of being censored, but because the ideas that they don't like are not going to be censored anymore.
Not going to be censored. You're absolutely right. Jojo, this is another Hollywood movie, falls foul of China's somewhat touchy attitude to the truth in certain positions. This is another misinformation story, I guess.
Yes, it is, isn't it? And they want the Top Gun sequel may be banned in the lucrative Chinese market because the actor wears a leather jacket featuring the Taiwanese flag in the film.
I mean, he's lucky they don't shoot down some Chinese jets in the course of the action as well.
But it is this, you know, this continual, it's relentless. People going, no, I don't like that. We're trying to rewrite history. We're trying to erase history. We're trying to pretend that things don't happen when they do. And the idea that we sanitise the world around us and that we expect everyone just not to say anything and walk around tiptoeing on eggshells is the start of lunacy.
Although I do think it's interesting because they're saying that this might be an example of finally Hollywood not kowtowing to China by leaving that stuff in. Now, whether they haven't actually got a release date for China. China only takes a certain number of Hollywood movies a year. But it's an interesting idea that finally, because the hypocrisy that companies like Disney do, where they go all in on some rights things, and then you've got the Uyghurs in China being, you know, a genocide over there.
As you said with the Star Wars, which is a Disney property now, right? Star Wars poster had the black actor just removed.
And their posters and stuff. I will say, I went to see Top Gun yesterday. It's brilliant, if I'm allowed to say that. And I'm just going to say something that my son said. He's 8 years old, came out of the cinema, and there's, I don't know if you remember it, but there's the son of Goose, who dies in the first film, this guy called Rooster.
Yeah.
This guy called Rooster, he's got the same moustache. That's why they look the same. And he came out...
on the canopy.
Yeah, exactly. So Rooster, the son, and this is what my son said, you know what? If Rooster couldn't grow a moustache, all he really had to do was dig up his dad's body, chop off the head, and then rip off the moustache, and he could just put it on himself. This is someone I have to share a flat with. How terrified am I?
I remember that phase as well. Up next is Thursday's Telegraph, Josh. This is a story that seems to have been airdropped in from 1983 as well. Top Gun 2.
Yeah, so France's war of words over franglais.
I'm sure I remember this being a row about...
Oh, my God. France literally has institutions dedicated to not allowing Hollywood and English and taking over...
Fish and chips.
Yeah, and all of that stuff. So this is... But the interesting thing here is instead of movies and TV shows, which is what they've traditionally books and stuff, it's now about video games.
Of course.
So now, and of course, because that is actually the biggest multi-billion-dollar entertainment industry in the world, much more than cinema and stuff. So the cultural impact that that's having on France, I think they've got a tricky situation here because the words that they're using to try and replace it, they've got streamer. So instead of streamer, it's jeu animateur en direct. Mate, you're just going to say streamer.
Yeah.
And esports is jeu video de competition. Esports. Good luck, guys.
Acronyms or something, don't they, to try and sort of narrow these things down?
Yeah.
What do you think, Jojo?
I just think it's all a load of nonsense and people are losing their minds.
I think the French have... I have a little bit of sympathy with the French.
Always a little bit.
The French language, they used to have lingua franca, right? I mean, that was, people sometimes still say that English, American English, is the lingua franca of the world. It must sting a little bit that their language is no longer universally recognised as the language of diplomacy, but they just still want to try and protect it within their own borders. I do kind of understand that. But all of the lessons of history tell you that in order to be strong, in order to flourish, you need to be porous, you need to be adaptable, you need to allow these words to come in, at which point they will develop and their own dialects and so on will overtake them, and they just drop a couple of little accents over a little grave over streamer.
Yeah,
you know?
le streamer.
Yeah, I always love it's like with Gaelic, when you hear all the Gaelic and then an English word comes in, like trampoline or something. It's always
Jodhpurs, all the wonderful words that the British brought back from the Raj, the Gymkhana and bungalow and pyjamas. Here is another story that really has literally been airdropped in from the 80s. This is from Thursday's Independent, Jojo.
Yes, so the Kate Bush fans are furious because her music is being used on Stranger Things, which I have yet to watch. I've seen a trailer for it, but I don't know if it's a documentary on what's actually happening in the world or if it's fiction. But yes, so the use of Kate Bush's music. And so, of course, reaching a newer audience again, people are discovering Kate Bush for the first time through Stranger Things, and the fans are furious that she's been discovered and doesn't want them to kind of jump on the bandwagon. They've been fans for years, and how dare you?
Ridiculous, aren't they?
Be happy that new people are discovering someone you love.
And Stranger Things is a widely held... I don't know if you genuinely haven't seen it, but it's a sort of sci-fi series, but it's kind of got a Spielberg vibe, right?
Yeah, and it's a huge hit for Netflix. Yeah. So it's great that new Kate Bush fans... I obviously knew you grew up on it, and then there was that documentary a few years ago, and that sort of reopened a lot of people. And I was like, I hadn't realised her artistic... sort of how massive,
I think maybe that one of the complaints is that they won't necessarily become Kate Bush fans, that Kate Bush will be resigned.
So what? But some of them will.
The prices of her tickets. She hardly tours once every 10 years.
That she'll become known as a Stranger Things.
The only thing that had ever annoyed me, have you ever heard of Keith Jarrett?
No.
A jazz pianist, and he famously plays entire concerts from scratch, totally improvised, sits down at the piano and just plays whatever comes into his head. His most famous concert was called the Köln concert, Cologne, K-O-L-N, and they used it as the music for the montage on the night Diana died. They had like a 20-minute montage of her life in sort of slow-mo, grainy black and white film, and they used this music. And it ruined it for me. I love that piece of music, but now whenever I hear it, I remember that. And I'm not even moved. I'm not or more.
Cry even more.
I just remember...
You cry too much now. That's the problem.
That terrible fortnight of South American-style mourning that we entered. Anyway, enough of 80s music. How about 1880s music? This is from tomorrow's Daily Mail, Josh.
Yeah, so the Royal Opera House are going to stage a non-racist version of Madame Butterfly. They have been through, they've had experts in and a panel and all this stuff, and the makeup, the costumes and the movement is going to allow it to be a little bit more authentic and strip it of Japanese stereotypes. And
because Madame Butterfly, the story basically is an American, I think it's a naval officer.
Goes across, has a baby, goes back and gets an American wife, and they're saying that it basically shows the superiority of the West.
It's white supremacist.
Or whatever. Come on, man. It's just... It's an opera.
Yeah.
Go along.
It's borderline
It's going to be boring anyway. You know? Now it's going to be authentically boring. Great.
But also, again, you can't just whitewash and eradicate things that did happen in our past. And there was... the white supremacy and,
Puccini was fascinated. Excuse me. Puccini was fascinated, clearly, by the Orient. His last unfinished opera, although it was finished for him, was Turandot, which is where Nessun Dorma comes from, the one that was always sung at the World Cup and everything. Nessun Dorma.
You're talking about opera and football, the two things I know least about.
But Nessun Dorma comes from that. But in that, if I remember rightly, I don't know, Chinese or Japanese princess... has a long line of suitors that she's had put to death because they're unable to answer a riddle or something. You know?
It's a very Japanese thing. Everyone knows that's Japanese. That's
the fact that there's a slight hint of like the American education system being a better. Thursday's Daily Star, Jojo. This will help us bring us up to date and demonstrate how much more sane and reasonable we are now than in the world of Puccini and white colonialism, right?
What, this story about 200 tablets stuffed up someone's hoo-ha?
Yeah.
Yes, a woman's hoo-ha.
A woman's hoo-ha. You have to say that now. You don't know that it was a woman's.
Yeah, it could be a trans man.
Well, it says it was a woman. But, yes, that was the mode of transport that she decided
200
to use.
pills.
200
More than some sort of pouch rather than individually like a... What are those?
I mean, I hope it was...
sweet dispensers, what are they called?
Pez.
The Pez, yeah. Like one of those. Just press on the head.
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? And again, it's this sort of dichotomy or this kind of juxtaposition, the idea that we all, festivals still around the world and are synonymous with drug taking.
Wow.
That the festivals still go on and people, there's all that kind of, pretending that people don't take drugs.
Yeah.
She did what, you shouldn't do is get caught.
I mean, the funny thing with the... Because I've never quite understood how the festival works in that. But in a nightclub, it's all understood that the bouncers on the door stop people taking in drugs because the nightclub...
They deal
that
it.
business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the festival can't be run quite that way, can it? I don't suppose. I don't know.
No, I don't think once you're in there...
I'm amazed that apparently a dog sniffed it out. Now, I'm not being funny. I'm genuinely not being funny about this, but I do know this much. MDMA, it's not a powerfully aromatic. It's not like marijuana or even cocaine.
But dogs' noses, they've got those dogs now that can tell if you've got COVID or not. Like they can test you as more accurate than drugs. But can I before you move, because I know you're looking...
kick that one.
I want to say I'll say two things here. First of all, the prosecutor was called Rosemary Proctor. That's a good one. I like that one. And also, she's been sentenced to 2 years in prison, suspended for 18 months. So really what she should have done was put the drugs in a cat and then kicked the cat over the top. And then she probably would have got less time.
The cat would have run off, following the cat around waiting. On to tomorrow's Mirror, Josh. I understand this next story may contain the C word.
Yes, just the C.
Yes. The word C.
The word C. So this is in the Mirror, and a mum has gave birth in the sea, in the ocean. Some people don't think it's particularly sanitary. I don't know. I think this wasn't in the UK, so there probably wasn't raw sewage.
But as people have said before, all we are is a sack of seawater, essentially. We're an organism that has developed an ability to stop leaking seawater.
Exactly. So she put it on Instagram. It's gotten like 200,000 hits. The baby's healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about... We with our 5 kids, we're desperate for a water birth. We never managed to get the water birth.
Did you have all the other elements? Did you do fire?
Yeah. Very good.
A lot of wind when you're giving birth, trust me.
So it's like, if this was the one chance we would have had to actually... This was her 5th child, I think. So I imagine it was...
She obviously finds it fairly easy to pump them out. I mean, my wife was screaming for an epidural. I don't think the gentle rhythm of the tide or the waves, would have sufficed.
No, I'm like that. I give birth like I'm shelling peas. Doesn't touch the sides. No.
Wow. And you're speaking of that in the present tense as well. I like that. Can we get someone in here to check underneath? That's impressive.
200 pills just dropped out.
That really is like shelling peas. I do think there is something to be said for allowing people to make these crazy decisions. I just don't think they should be bullied into it. That was the midwife scandal fiasco thing, wasn't it? Where there were these women who were kind of being put under pressure to have some kind of natural birth. I think the default should probably be hospital, but if you say, no, listen, really, seriously, I've thought it through, that's fine. I like the gentle rhythms of the...
Yeah, but they didn't have, a medical person there in any way, so if anything had gone wrong, it could have...
No, I know.
Staying under the sea for the next story. This is from tomorrow's Independent. Jojo, you got this one. This is the world's biggest plant, I believe.
Oh, yes, and I don't really understand it.
Basically, there was one seed 4,500 years ago, and that seed has grown into... They thought it was now like this underwater meadow, and it isn't. It's just one plant. 4,500 years it's been
Amazing,
growing.
isn't it? That's extraordinary. That is like a whole Bible in a single plant. 4,500 years.
Is it of any use?
Well, no, but it is. It's larger.
I don't care how old it is and what it's done.
Well, it's interesting, but it is huge. It's
largest plant.
and it's larger than the city of Glasgow.
Imagine
I would argue also it's got far more greenery in it than the city of Glasgow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a fun fact, isn't it?
It is weird, then they say, I remember this in the Guinness Book of Records I had as a kid, the world's oldest living organism was a creosote ring. I think it was somewhere in a desert in California. I don't know, it was like a sort of stain on the outside of a boulder. The inside of a crater.
Wow.
Just like a dark...
You actually read the bits in that... See, I just looked at the pictures like, wow, that guy's tall. But you were like... But that was you going, oh, this is the creosote. Interesting, very good.
Out. An absolute pleasure. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. My guests will be Nick Dixon and Simon Fanshawe.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest story.